Infiniti is the new Lexus, and this comparison proves it. I'll include a link to the Infiniti and Murray's website in the description down below. They're providing us with this QX80. Let's get right into the comparison. This week's giveaway highlight is the insane Richard Petty Hellcat. If you're interested, use code BHC or click the link in the description down below or in the pinned comment. This will give you 4x bonus entries on any donation, $25 or more. The Infiniti is powered by a twin-turbo 3.5-liter V6 that goes through a 9-speed automatic. Fuel economy stated to be 16 around town, 19 on the highway, with power outputs being 450 horsepower and then 516 pound-feet of torque. Now, the Lexus has two powertrain options available: a standard twin-turbo 3.4-liter V6 putting out 409 horsepower, 479 pound-feet of torque, and then you've got this hybrid option which puts out 457 horsepower, 583 pound-feet of torque. And in the real world, I've been averaging about 17 miles per gallon with this powertrain, so you're not really getting better fuel economy compared to the Infiniti. Man, the hood on the Infiniti sounded a lot more solid than the Lexus. That's crazy. Anyways, almost at 500,000 subscribers. Really appreciate it if you'd help out with that. The Infiniti is crazy with the styling. You've got a massive grille, split light design. So the actual headlights are on the lower section there. It's definitely in your face. They benchmarked Cadillac for this car. The Lexus also has a massive grille, and it actually makes the Lexus look a lot bigger than it is. The Lexus is quite a bit smaller than the Infiniti, and you guys will see that with the side. But you have more of a traditional light setup with fog lights down below. Now with the Infiniti, the entire wheel setup is 275 by 50 by 22, so you're gonna have kind of a luxury car setup. Again, the Escalade is the main thing they were thinking of when they developed this. With the Lexus, this one has aftermarket wheels. The stock wheels are 18-inch for this package. You can also get this with larger wheels if you get like an F-Sport, for example. So you can get it, you know, Lux big wheels if you like that. Now, the Lexus has a 112-inch wheelbase, and it's about 200 inches in length. Body on frame, by the way. Independent front suspension, solid rear axle with the Lexus. The Infiniti is also body on frame, but it's a lot bigger, 210 inches, so about 10 inches longer, and then 121-inch wheelbase, so about 9 inches longer with the wheelbase. And the Infiniti is independent suspension all around. Now, if you get a hybrid Lexus like this, then your load floor looks like that without a third row because of the hybrid battery. If you get the 600, that's the non-hybrid, the third row folded down will sit the same as what this is at roughly. If you get the third row hybrid, which this one doesn't have, then your load floor raises by about 5-ish inches, so you lose quite a bit of vertical space. But you do at least get a 2400 watt inverter in the back, and you know, with this setup, it's pretty good with the storage. The seats do not really fold down flat. The Infiniti, on the other hand, has a bunch of controls here in the back, so for the seats to raise and lower them, also for the air suspension to raise and lower, and we'll talk about suspension a little bit more later. But big difference, the seats actually fold down flat. You actually have space behind the third row with the third row folded up, and you've got tons of vertical space. So the packaging with that independent rear suspension is a lot better for space. But because this is not a hybrid, only 150 watt for the inverter. Now with the Lexus, you've got the giant light bar there on the back stylistically. And something I want to mention on the exterior of the Lexus is a lot of the panels, you know, they're not bad or anything like that, but just kind of notice the noise. And compare that with the QX80, there's actually not as big of a difference as you might think. And then of course the QX80 has a giant light bar. I'll take a few steps back so you can see the whole vehicle. And this is where you can also kind of hopefully see the size difference. Again, the height's pretty similar, it's just the length it's different. Now in the back of the Lexus, you guys can see that I've got decent legroom, got a little storage pocket, heated and ventilated seats here for the rear passengers, got my own climate zone as well. And I do like the seats, they're really nice. You also have really nice trim on the door panel, sunshades here for the rear passengers. There's ventilation throughout the top. This doesn't have a third row, so I can't really show that, but the third row is not very usable, it's tiny. Now the spacing in the back of the Infiniti is quite a bit better in terms of your seating position, everything. And you have all the same features in terms of heated and cooled seats. I will say, if you don't have the car on, none of this is illuminated. That's a little bit of a miss in my opinion. I'd rather have just like a true physical control. But you do get this cool screen and center console in this one because it's a fancy loaded up one. But yeah, the seats are very Very comfortable. You've got really nice fit and finish and trim on the door panel with this, and this even has a fancy headliner. And then the third row is actually, again, this is a real full size. The third row is usable. Now at the front of the Lexus, we've got more of those nice materials. And I will say the trim in the Lexus does feel a little bit nicer than what you have in the Infiniti. It's not like a night and day difference, but it's a little bit of a difference. The mirrors do power fold in. You've got blind spot monitoring, memory seats. Payload with this is 1,190 pounds. And then you got those front seats, really nice with the trim. You got your adjustments there on the side in normal fashion too. And then you got stuff like a power adjustable steering wheel and then some controls on the side for like the camera. Now popping over to the Infiniti, a lot more color with the red. That's definitely cool. Of course, blind spot monitoring. I think the sound system in the Infiniti might be a little bit better than the Mark Levinson and the Lexus, but they're both good sound systems. Memory seats, you got all of your window controls. And this is what I'm talking about, like you can't see anything unless you turn the car on and then it illuminates. I'm wondering the long-term reliability on that. And then we've got more payload, 1466. Speakers there in the headrest, and then the seats perforated down the center. You got all of your power adjustments, massage function. The Lexus has massage as well. And then you got practical controls here on the side, like your steering assist, auto stop start. The steering wheel is of course power adjustable. And let's start up ye ol' Lexus. Full digital gauge cluster, again, kind of a traditional setup in terms of just having the gauge there in the center. And then the steering wheel's got nice trim around it. You got paddles in the back. It has all the modern tech like adaptive cruise control. It's got a heads-up display. We also have a 360 camera system with this. And you have two different screens. You have the top screen, which is the infotainment system. The bottom screen is just kind of vehicle functions. This is literally an afterthought. Physical controls for the climate. This is something I do like, is all the physical controls, including for like the drive line. It's a little dial there, and then for the heated and ventilated seats. Now the off-road version with the QX80 is actually the Nissan version, the Armada Pro 4X. But anyways, the Lexus does have diff locks front and rear. You can get it with that. Also center diff lock. And then the height adjustable suspension with the Lexus is hydraulic. We'll talk about that during the driving portion. Got phone charging pad, cool box, center console. It opens up either way. And like I said, really nice feel with the trim, good fit and finish. Camera rear view mirror, and then just a traditional center. And it's got a nice headliner. And let's start up the Infiniti. So the steering wheel quite a bit more stylized, right? With like the fancy red trim. And you've got kind of more of a digital type feel. I mean, look at the gauge cluster there. It's a giant screen across the dash that goes to the infotainment system. And this does have, of course, a 360 camera. The screen view is bigger than what you have in the Lexus, so that's a positive. And yeah, response time's good. I think both infotainment systems are easy to use. They both have CarPlay and everything. You've got a secondary screen down below. So yeah, this is one thing that I'm not a huge fan of, is tons of screen. Like even your drive modes are built in the screen. It does have a nice haptic feedback feel, but like pushing the drive line in, you've got to do it in the screen, which is different. And you got these little buttons here for the transmission select. And then air suspension. All right, got some cup holders. Pretty nice phone charging pad. And then this does have a cool box center console, just like the Lexus. Again, really nice trim, nice fit and finish. Same thing with the trim on the dash. Camera rear view mirror with this, and then this actually has a panoramic sunroof, so bigger sunroof. Now these are both about the same price. The Infiniti is $116K. The Lexus originally was $117K for the MSRP. So you really are getting a bigger vehicle for the same price with the Infiniti. Let's drive them. Now something to note, the Infiniti has acoustic glass up front, not in the rear. It's actually pretty rare that you'll see an automaker put acoustic glass front and rear. But right off the bat, I mean, the seats are incredibly comfortable. And that's the thing, they have massage function, but like you don't really need massage function with seats this comfortable. You know, it's like, you know, some manufacturers, they got pretty uncomfortable seats and they got to make up for it with having massagers. Not the case with this. Now this is a full-size SUV, so it feels big. And the powertrain is so smooth. This is one of the smoothest V6s out there. It is truly a gem. It's got great low-end torque. You don't really feel lag or anything like that. And again, the 9-speed, it just goes through the gears. It goes through the gears. This is comfortable. And, you know, you don't get like creaks or rattles or anything like that. It's solid. over the bumps. The air suspension handles things quite well. Air suspension is comfortable, and you know, air suspension plus independent suspension, it's good. The only downside with that system is if you've got the system extended up, you're gonna lose some comfort, or if you go over really big bumps, sometimes that can kind of max out the system. But you know, 99% of the time it's super good. You know, the frame takes a lot of the impact of the bump too, so it isolates you quite well, and these seats I think help out with that isolation, because man, these are like, seriously, like one of my favorite seats ever in a car. I mean, the interior, the build and everything feels high quality in this too. This is a very upscale feeling vehicle. I love how smooth this V6 is. That's the first thing that I notice about this, is the V6 just doing its thing. Oh, there's more storage under here too. I always forget about that when manufacturers put that. It's a very nice thing to have. I just always forget about it. But yeah, you can throw like a bag under there. And you know, you got to remember, this is built off of the, you know, Patrol platform now, so this is kind of more of a heavy duty build for long-term reliability. Gosh, and the engine sounds pretty good when you get into it. This is a nice car. So in conclusion, it's comfortable, it's spacious, it's well insulated. I mean, it's really quiet in here. It's really quiet. It just drives well. The engine's great. Like, again, a little bit too much digital, in my opinion. A little bit too much digital, but digital aside, there's not really much you can critique on this thing, and it drives shockingly well for having huge wheels. Right off the bat, the LX feels like a smaller vehicle. Just getting in it, the interior feels like narrower, smaller. I have way less knee room. Yeah, I just feel like I'm in a smaller vehicle. Some of you might like that. Some of you might like that. Some of you might not. Now, I will say, stuff like little items like the doors and even like the turn signal stalks, they do feel a little bit more kind of heavy duty in this, if that makes, it's hard to explain. They just, like when you do the turn signal, it just feels a little bit more solid. So I think that's a big part of the reason why the LX is so much smaller than the Infiniti is, well, or rather the Infiniti is able to be bigger at the same price point, is everything in here is going to be just maybe a little bit more high quality. Again, it's not enough though to like sway me one way or the other. I'm not like, oh man, this is so much more high quality, like you got to go this way. It's more like it's kind of a nicer feel doing the turn signal actuation. Kind of a nicer feel opening and closing the door. I will say I'm not a huge fan of the pop-out door handle design. I hope that goes away in the car industry. To me, it's just overly complicated and something that's likely to break. Suspension on road's not as comfortable, surprisingly. So it has hydraulic suspension. Now the big benefit of hydraulic is really off-road, because off-road, even at full height, it's still just as comfortable as right now we're at normal height. So that's the big benefit. But because this has a solid axle in the back, it bumps around more. It's just, like I said, it's just not as comfortable. The Infiniti was definitely more comfortable, and the engine's not as smooth. You think with the hybrid, they would be able to have just this perfect, buttery smooth, low-end torque. And it's got a lot of low-end torque, but it's kind of rough. The V6 in the Infiniti is a lot smoother than the V6 in this. In terms of noise, I mean, this has acoustic glass front and rear, so it should technically be quieter than the Infiniti. I'm not really noticing a huge difference. Now, part of that is because I'm the driver. If I was in the back seat of this is probably going to be quieter than the back seat of the Infiniti because acoustic glass. But for the driver, from the driver's perspective, yeah, I'm not really noticing a difference. Not really noticing a difference at all. And, you know, when it comes to power, it's quicker. It definitely feels like a bit torquier, and it's got more torque. You feel it. And it's, you know, it's just, even though these vehicles actually weigh about the same amount, smaller vehicle in terms of overall size, so it kind of feels a little bit more nimble. Yeah, shocking. This has all-terrain tires with a lot of sidewalls, so it should be more comfortable over the bumps, but the Infiniti was actually, because of the independent suspension, because those airbags weren't fully extended out, a bit more comfortable, a bit more luxe. Infiniti is offering build quality that I would say is on par with this. Materials are slightly lower caliber, just slightly. Features are identical. It has all the same features this has at the same price point. I think it's a better value. I think it's a better value, especially when you look at the fact that, you know, an LX 600 is like the same price and has less power than the Infiniti. If you get just an LX 600 F Sport, and you know, the 700H isn't that big of a price premium, but then you have a third row back storage area that's not functional. I specifically got this because it doesn't have a third row, because the third row makes it so unusable. So the packaging's better. It's, I mean, that's like 90% of the way there in terms of what the build quality, like I said, is there. It's just the materials aren't quite as fancy with some. The steering wheel actually feels nicer in the Infiniti, but it's just this stuff on the side, and the Lexus does feel a little bit more high quality, but it's not like a deal breaker if you ask me. Let me know which one you'd buy.